All right, so just gonna be a quick video regarding everything that's been going on over the past couple of days here with Israel and Iran going at basically at war at this point. It's not really deniable, right? Over the last handful of days, they've been shooting rockets back and forth, literally in the hundreds, if not to the thousands, at this point. And there's no end in sight of what's going on over there as far as now. And this is really nothing new. Over the past couple of months, there's always been conflict between the two nations, and of course, it has to correlate with the war that's going on in Gaza right now, and really the whole region, right? The whole region seems to be against Israel right now, right? But what I find funny though is still, with this being said, you still have these preterists on YouTube, like, oh, we're living in the kingdom. Hey, look, all of the words of Jesus already came and passed, 2,000 years ago. Hey, when Christ sat upon the mountain of olives and told his apostles the signs to look out for, to warn them about the end of days. Oh, that already all came and went. It was all talking about 70 AD, right? And the Roman Jewish wars, right, from 64 AD to 73 AD. Oh, that was the grand conclusion of the Bible. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, y'all can't really sit there and tell me that you honestly believe this nonsense. You honestly can't sit there and tell me that. Like, say for an example, right? Like the preterist viewpoint is they'll tell you that Jerusalem or Israel, right? They're same thing, just different name. They'll tell you that that they were Babylon, right? When you read Old Testament like Isaiah 50 or Revelation 18 or all the other parts of the Bible that speak about Babylon, they'll tell you that's actually talking about Jerusalem, right? But here's the kicker though. Here's the funny part about it is they'll tell you that the time in history where Babylon fell was 70 AD, right? That was the sacking of Jerusalem, right? That was the fall of that great Babylon that you read about in Revelation. But what I find hilarious about it, though, is hold up a second. Let me understand this. So apparently, Babylon was overthrown 2,000 years ago, but yet over there today, there's still a thriving nation over there. And literally, there's still parts in Israel today that are left over from like the time of Christ. Like, say, for instance, you can go on the internet and look up the Western Wall, and there's literally like a live stream of this whole portion of the wall that is left over from the ancient temple that was built there back when Christ walked the earth, and it's still standing there to this very day. Right? Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. Right? So again, there's literally parts of the ancient city that are still standing today. Or what about, how about this point? What about the Dome of the Rock? Right? Like literally the center of Israel where the old temples used to stand. Again, if you're not familiar with the history, just look it up. Right? But the point is that all of these sites that were around for thousands of years, they're still there to this very day. So how the hell did that great city fall 2,000 years ago if the city is still being sacked by other nations today? Like, I mean, seriously, Israel, which I want to clarify, the people in the land today are not God's people. The people in the land today are imposters, whereas racist Mario will call them, they are pretendos. Right? They are pretenders. They are pretendos. Those are not actually God's people. But the point, though, is that the land itself is still the land from the Bible, though, right? So the land itself still is the land from the Bible, but the people themselves are the imposters. But that's not the point of the video, though. The point of the video is how can anybody tell me that Jerusalem apparently fell 2,000 years ago, but yet here we are in 2025, and Jerusalem is still being surrounded by armies today and is being fought over. Like, I mean, seriously, it's like, really, it's truly astonishing to me how anybody in 2025 could sit there and call himself a preterist, right? Oh, a full preterist. It's like, okay, I mean, do you even know like what that entails? Do you know the difference between a partial preterist and a full preterist? Like, do you even know what the term means? Because the truth is, a lot of these guys don't even know what the term means. It just seems like today a lot of people are just hearing nonsense on the internet and are just going around repeating the nonsense. You know what I'm saying? It's really sad and pathetic. It just shows how easy it is to brainwash a person, right? They listen to AOC Chandler, right, or Pastor William Bell, and they did like a whole hour-long sermon about how all things were fulfilled, and we're living under Christ in the kingdom today. And again, that's what all these preterists hold in common together, is they believe that we're living under Christ and He is ruling the world today. Let that sink in real quick. So they'll tell you that Christ is ruling the world today and all nations are in obedience unto Him today. It's like, how the hell does that make any damn sense? Like, what about the fact, do you know that there's nations on earth where the Bible itself is banned? So you could get in trouble if you read the Bible in some nations in the world, or try to, go out on the street and teach the Bible. You could get in trouble for that in some nations. Or let me give you another example. Did you know there's nations in the world where like 80 or 90% of the population are Muslim or Hindu? So it's like, hold up a second. So if Christ is really ruling the nations today, well, why are other nations going around worshiping idols and different gods that are against the God of the Bible? I mean, that doesn't seem to line up with what the scriptures say. Scriptures teach that all nations would have to, be put into subjection. Like, I believe that's, what is that, Revelation chapter 11, I believe it's verse 15 or 18. It says that the kingdoms of this world, they have become the kingdoms of Christ, and He shall reign forever. Now, clearly in context, that's not talking about this current day. It's clearly talking about in the future sense, because, it's Revelation, right, in the future. So it's not right now today. But it's telling you in that time, that's what it's going to be in that time, right? The kingdoms of this world are going to become the kingdom of Christ, and He's going to rule over them forever. Right? All nations are going to be put into subjection. It tells you that all throughout the Bible. Like, a good example to quote is, what about Isaiah the 14th chapter, right? It talks about in that day, God's going to give Israel a rest from all of their sorrow and from the hard bondage they were made to serve, and then they're going to take their oppressors and they're going to rule over them. Well, when the hell does that happen? That certainly isn't going on today. And those of us in the know, we know that, the Black, Hispanic, or Native American are actually the true descendants of Israel, not those imposters in the land today. But the point is, regardless of who the real Israel is today, this isn't happening anywhere. This isn't happening anywhere. And, it's funny because some guys try to claim, oh, it happened after such and such captivity, Israel took their oppressor. It's like, okay, let's think about that for a second. Hypothetically speaking, even if that did happen for a couple months somewhere after a captivity, it wasn't everlasting. It was done away with after a very short period of time, if we're going to go by your logic. Whereas, according to the text, it speaks about this being forever, right? Israel's going to forever take their enemies and put them under their feet. Oh, it's not going to come a point where it's that way for a couple years and then it's going to change around. Like, that's not what it teaches. Like, the burden of proof would be upon you to demonstrate such an argument, because that's not according to the text. Again, we could start throwing chapters around. Like, say, for instance, check out Isaiah 49, Isaiah 60. Right, an honorable mention would be Revelation chapter 2, verse 25 to 27. It says, to him who overcomes, I'm going to give him power to rule over the nations with a rod of iron. Wait, the rule over the nations with a rod of iron? There was some dummy in the comment section the other day telling me that, oh, well, that's talking about, well, when it says the rod of iron, it really says, like, it really means to just teach the people the gospel. Say, what the hell is this dummy talking about? Oh, to rule over with a rod of iron means to teach people the gospel. Say, what the hell are you talking about? Again, it's really bizarre to me some of these doctrines that people are running around with, on YouTube today. Another honorable mention is Isaiah chapter 2 says that the nations were not going to know war anymore, right? So once Christ gains rulership over the nations at the end, they're not going to know war anymore. So again, according to the preterist position, the end already came, right? Judgment day already passed. The day of the Lord already passed. The judgment of that great Babylon, that already came and went, right? The plagues of Revelation 16, that's in the far past now. That has no relevance for our time today, according to the doctrine. All of that is past events, right? Whenever you open up the Bible, whatever chapter or verse you read, that's all in the past. There's nothing left in there for our current day today. That's according to what the preterist position is, right? So it's like, how do y'all address this? Isaiah 2 talks about the nations wouldn't know war anymore once this kingdom is established. And then, the whole other point of contention is the Bible clearly talks about a nation that would be set up and rule all nations forever. Like, say, for instance, Isaiah chapter 5 to 9. Or what is that? Isaiah, is it chapter 9 and 5 on down, or 5 and 9? Where it talks about the government being set upon Christ's shoulder, and he ruling the nations forever. You can look up both them chapters, validate what I'm saying. But there's other honorable mentions, like Daniel 2:44. It says, in the days of these kings, the God of heaven's going to set up a kingdom that shall rule forever and shall break all other nations and put them into submission. It's like, where the hell's that taking place at? I mean, first of all, there's how many wars taking place in the world today over the last handful of years, and, well, really, I should say the last couple of decades or even centuries. There's so many wars that's been taking place around the world over the last centuries. We will literally have to sit here, an entire 24 hours if we were to go into detail about all of the wars, that took place over the last, couple hundred years around the world. Oh, but I forgot. Christ is ruling the world today. It's like, come on. I mean, is there really people out here who believe this, or like these guys trying to like pull our leg and, in some type of, sarcastic joke? You know what I'm saying? Another point that should be mentioned is, how the hell could Christ be ruling nations today if like we're on the verge of like World War III now, right? Like, say for instance, like even the Iranian media, or even the Russian media, is telling their people that looks like World War III might be on the horizon. Even Donald Trump's on the news talking about the possibility of World War III in the coming weeks and months. Like, I mean, seriously, like we're at a point right now where you turn on the news and the president of the country is on there talking about the likelihood of there being another world war very soon. Oh, but this is the kingdom. This is the kingdom. I mean, come on, are there really peons out there who believe this bullshit? I mean, you can't be serious. Somebody got to be pulling my leg. But unfortunately, that's not true. I mean, there's literally, I'd say, I made a statement before, and I'll hold to that. It seems like there are more full preterists out there in the world than the amount of people who will call themselves to be Hebrew Israelites, believe that or not, right? There's more full preterists out there in the world than there are people who would subscribe to being a Hebrew Israelite. At least in my opinion, that's what it seems. Like, these guys are everywhere. Like, say, for instance, I called into a random live stream the other day. I forget the name of this channel, but I called into a random stream, because I was enjoying the conversation. So I called in and get talking to the guy on there. And, 5 minutes into the conversation, the guy's like, oh, well, yeah, I would consider myself to be, a full preterist. And I was thinking to myself, it's like, oh, here we go again. It's like, anywhere you go, you can't get away from these guys. It's like these dudes are like infested all over YouTube. You know what I found funny? I saw literally yesterday there was a debate between this guy, what's his cat? Charles Gibbons or whatever, from the Theological Seminary School, which I call him the Theological Cemetery School. Right, that guy Charles Biggins. whatever this guy's name is. But he was doing a debate. I believe it was on Standing for Truth's channel, and it was against, um, as y'all could probably guess, it was against this full preterist dude named Truth and Tello's Ministry, which this guy's always around my channel for whatever reason, which I don't know. I don't know why though. It's like, why would y'all want to be subscribed to a channel that teaches completely opposite to what you believe? Right? That's like atheists following religious channels. It doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't get a chance to watch the debate yet, but I happened to just like catch the notification of it and read the headline of it, right? And it was all, free grace preacher Charles Biggins versus Truth and Tello's preterist. Is once saved, always saved true? Which, believe it or not, I got to give credit to the preterist in this rare instance, because he's actually correct, saying that once saved, always saved is not true. So in this rare instance, I got to give credit to the preterist position. Well, I shouldn't say the position as far as like their end times views and stuff like that. But the one thing this guy said that is true, and I know because I've seen him talk about it other times before, is the fact that once saved, always saved is an incorrect doctrine. But the free gracers believe it is true, right? Oh, saved forever, right? A person can't ever lose their salvation, which obviously the Bible teaches that a person can lose their salvation. Like, say, for instance, all we need to put that to bed would be, was that First Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "No, brethren, that in the last days some will depart from the faith." Say, hold up, what? Some will depart in the last days? I thought y'all said that that a true Christian could never leave Christ and not be saved anymore. But the Bible clearly disagrees with that. Now, one thing I do find strange, though, with the preterist position, even though they're correct on the once saved, always saved being incorrect, the strange thing to me is like, why are these preterists getting into salvational debates? Like, say, for instance, I saw the same dude, right, Truth and Tellos. I seen the guy on Ace Theo's channel the other day, and he was going back and forth with those clowns over there. But the funny thing I find interesting, though, is like, why would these guys go on these like religious debates regarding like salvation and who gets salvation and all this stuff, if their whole view as being a full preterist literally means that they believe all those things came and went in the past? So like, how does it make sense to talk about salvation or the rapture or a coming kingdom if y'all believe that literally already came and went 2,000 years ago? So it's not even for us living today. It just seems very bizarre to me. And you know what I find like the absolute kick in the balls with all this is, you ask these guys, what happens when people pass away? The predators will be like, oh, well, you go to heaven and see Jesus, right? You go to heaven and live with sweet Jesus. But yet when I debate preterists, they tell me, oh, well, every verse that talks about seeing Christ or Christ physically appearing, that's not literal, right? It's just like symbolic. But then they'll tell you, oh, yeah, when you die, you go to heaven with Jesus. It's like, but hold up, but I thought you guys said that you can't see him, like it's just metaphorical. So now apparently it's not, when it's sufficient for what you want to believe, right? I mean, come on, this is getting pathetic and stupid at this point, man. This is just getting pathetic and just, it's really just laughable. It's just really laughable to me how anybody could rationally call himself a full preterist in today's day and age. So I don't want to make the video too drawn out. I'll round it up to 20 minutes here. But, in closing remarks, it just doesn't rationally make any sense how anybody could hold a position of being a full preterist, with all of the things happening in the world, all of the unrighteousness, all of the sufferings of people, all of the global, well, so-called global wars, and everything else that's been going on over the last, say, for instance, 5 or 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get how anybody in today's day and age could go around and believe such nonsense like that. It's really just bizarre, and and childish if you take 5 minutes to think about it. But anyway, I'll wrap the video up there.